it's Em, and I just recorded this entire video and then the file was corrupted. So now I'm very upset because like I said everything I wanted to in the way I wanted to the first time. I don't script these, you guys. I just go. And so now I'm a little upset. But we're gonna try it again. This is me talking about The Shadow Key by Susan Stokes-Chapman. Maybe there is a ghost in the machine. It didn't like that I didn't like this book as much as it thought I should. Okay, so I finally finished reading another book. I finally have a book I can talk about. Part of it has been I've been very busy. Part of it has been there's obviously a lot of other distracting factors in recent weeks. Part of it is this book is very long and it's pretty slow. The pacing is a little bit, it's a little long-winded and a little bit like, which I get. This is a Gothic-esque historical fiction and the style of writing is, I guess, indicative of that setting, time, place kind of story, but at the same time there still feels like there's more here than there needed to be. This story is set in 1783 in Wales. Dr. Henry Talbot, he's a young surgeon coming from London to Wales. There's a whole backstory as to why he has to leave London in something of a disgrace after a medical mistake, a mishap, if you will. But he's offered a position by Julian Tressilian, who is an Englishman with an estate in Wales, I guess. The estate isn't really his. It's his niece Lynette's. But he owns, I guess, the mine, and he has some amount of control over some. It's complicated, but let's just say this. Julian invites Dr. Henry Talbot. We're going to go by Henry because most of the characters in this book end up going by first names, regardless of the time period. They're all like, let's just call each other by our first names. He offers Henry the position of local doctor. Now, it's kind of this two-part thing. Julian's sister-in-law, his brother has died, but his sister-in-law, I think is his brother. Is it his cousin? I thought they were brothers, but in any case, the owner of the estate, he has passed away, and his wife is mentally unstable, I guess. She's largely confined to her room, although she wanders out periodically and has weird fits and delusions. And her daughter, so Lady Gwyn is the one who's maybe not well. Her daughter Lynette actually has inherited the house. Julian tried to convince Lynette that it was too big a responsibility and she should just hand it all over to him, but she refused. Now, Lynette is that character. She is the woman who wears men's clothes and refuses to pin her hair up, okay? That pretty much sums up her personality. If you've read any kind of book like this, you know exactly which character this is. There's nothing new or interesting about Lynette. She's that character. Henry is the man of science who refuses to take into account any of the local superstitions and, and that kind of thing. He is that character. These characters are not like multifaceted, let's just say. That was one of the issues I had with the book. They're not, they are who they are. They're stock characters for this kind of story, I guess. In any case, Julian wants Henry to kind of look after Gwyn and also to maybe make sure that Lynette hasn't inherited her mother's insanity. And also his job to some extent is to take care of the local townspeople. It's a very small Welsh village. They are not very happy about having an Englishman for a doctor. They don't like Julian. They don't like English people. There's a history about how poorly the local English people have treated them, and Henry has to overcome a certain amount of prejudice on that front. He's trying to learn Welsh. There's a lot of like Welsh in the book. There's a little pronunciation guide at the beginning of the book, although not a glossary anywhere. I've heard a lot of people say they wished there had been a glossary. That would have, I think, been nice. I could understand from context clues what most of the Welsh words were intended to mean, but, a glossary never hurts. And besides, let's bring back maps and glossaries in books. One of my favorite things about Watership Down is the rabbit language like dictionary in the back of that book. So, that's just a me thing. In any case, there is mystery to this book. Henry has come to Wales. The reason there is an open position is that the previous doctor died, and most people are like, oh, well, he was old, but then it turns out he was murdered. And so there is some investigating going on there. Plus, they're trying to figure out if Lady Gwyn is actually crazy, like what's wrong with her, if anything. Maybe there's something going on there. And then there's some subtle hints of the supernatural, but not really. So the thing about this book, and look, if you know anything about this kind of a symbol, right? I'm sorry, I'm gonna try and get the glare off. Then you'll kind of get a sense about the underpinnings of this book. It was the reason I picked it up, or one of the reasons I picked it up. But to be honest, like, the supernatural element is very thin. And this is more historical fiction than any kind of spooky, supernatural, truly gothic weirdness, right? There are some moments that you're like, ooh, well, that's interesting. Maybe something happened there, but it's all mild. So between the pacing and the characterization and just the fact, the book isn't very subtle. I saw what was coming well in advance, and honestly, it's not as if the author tried to hide it. I feel like the clues were very much like focused on, like remarked upon, like the main characters talked about them, thought about them, because the chapters are written in this sort of alternate POV of Lynette and Henry. Third person, but limited. So you hear their thoughts, which are often kind of, again, long-winded and repetitive. And then they have these conversations. And of course, there's a lot of this kind of miscommunication and like, ooh, this person resenting that person because they think somebody is lying to them instead of just having a conversation. There's a certain amount of that involved, which can get frustrating in any book. It is frustrating again here because it just draws the book out more than it needs to be. But yeah, it's like as opposed to something that is finely minced and sprinkled in and stirred into a dish, these are big chunks of information, and the clues and everything, you can easily pick them out of your food. I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor, but you see what I'm saying. I think I would prefer something more subtly written, more finely crafted, and I don't mean fine as in quality, I just mean like detailed, right? This has detail, but not in the places where I would want it, and it's over embellished in some places and under embellished in others, as opposed to being like kind of well done. Like I don't want to say homogenous. Gosh, I'm having trouble with my words today. Now that I've had to film this twice, I said it so well the first time. Okay, but anyway, I think you get my point. I gave this 2 stars on Goodreads. It's like a 2.3. I don't know that I would read more by this author because there are just parts of it that to me felt a little amateurish. But it is, I think, only her second novel. She wrote something called Pandora that apparently a lot of people liked. And I don't... When I hear Pandora, I think of the Anne Rice vampire novel, which I loved that's one of my favorite of the Vampire Chronicles. I think technically Pandora's like a separate vampire series. So you have the Vampire Chronicles and then the other ones, Pandora and Vittorio, right? But Pandora I've reread multiple times because I think it's really good. So I don't know what this author's Pandora is, but I don't know that I would read it either. I don't know if this is just one of those things where she'll mature as a writer, or if this is just her style and it's not for me. I love gothic, I love spooky, I love historical fiction, you know, so this should have ticked my boxes. It just, for whatever reason, well, for all the reasons I've discussed, it didn't. So if you have read this, or Pandora, I guess, or if you've read some kind of great gothic novel that you think might be more to my taste, let me know in the comments, because I'm always on the lookout for more great reads. And until next time, take care.